Hey there, today I'm looking at dubstep basslines. There's plenty of tutorials out there which will teach you to modulate the cutoff filter to achieve that wobble that's so often associated with dubstep. But today I want to look a little bit deeper into dubstep basslines, especially making really dirty ones with plenty of mid-range, the kind of sound associated with artists like Rusko. I've got to admit, this isn't actually my favourite style of dubstep, but it's a lot of fun to make these sounds and to mash around on your keyboard with them. So let's get started. I'm going to be using the ES2, which I've already loaded up, and as ever I'm starting with my plain sine wave patch because as you know, I hate Logic's initial preset. So we're going to build this from scratch. Here's what the sine wave sounds like. So first things first, we're going to open up oscillator 2, and what we're going to be doing is frequency modulating oscillator 1 with oscillator 2. So I'm going to set the octave of oscillator 1 very low and the frequency of, or rather the pitch of 2 in the middle. That should give us harmonics all the way through that gives us that big wide fat sound across the frequency range. Let's dial in some frequency mod on 1, and you can already hear that that gives us lots of sort of strange harmonics in the mid-range. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be using some of Logic's digiwaves, and those give really different tones to the sound. Dubstep bassline sounds often have a kind of organy type tone to them, so I've chosen organ 4 as my digiwave. You can see where the dirt's going to come from, but obviously it's up to you to go through these and choose whichever one you like to get the kind of tone you're looking for. Obviously that's a pretty unpleasant sound because there's no filter on at the moment. Okay, now we've got our filter on. The next step is obviously to start modulating that filter with a LFO. So we're going to use LFO 2 because we can tempo sync it. That's sounding good. The next step is a little trick that I figured out today, and that's why I'm doing this tutorial. And it adds extra dirty harmonics to what is already quite a nasty sound. What we're going to do is modulate the pitch of oscillator 2, which itself is modulating the frequencies of 1. I'm going to modulate that with LFO 1 at a very high rate. So essentially what we're doing is frequency modulating oscillator 2, which is then frequency modulating oscillator 1. So we're getting into fairly deep FM synthesis here. Can you hear the difference in the tone? Gives it that extra meat that we've been looking for. The problem is, often if you're playing higher up notes on the keyboard, this will cause all sorts of strange difficulties and the sound will become inconsistent and weak in some areas and not in others due to mathematics which I don't understand. So what I do is I put that through my mod wheel on my keyboard. Even if you don't have a mod wheel, you can draw these in hyperdraw in the regions details in the piano roll. So what that means is that I can, when I'm playing low, I can have that dialed in. But if I play these higher notes, I can sort of choose, and it also adds some extra interest to the bass line. If you wobble that mod wheel around, you get all these different harmonics coming through, which is quite nice. Finally, I'm going to open up oscillator 3 just to give some extra subby meat to it. And I found that a square wave, or at least something close to a pulse wave, does that quite nicely. A little bit of glide, perhaps, just so that those sounds slide between each other. I'm going to open up the cutoff a little bit more to get that really mid-range CAC, it's often called on the dubstep forums. And finally, I'm going to dial in a little bit of distortion. It's up to you to choose hard or soft distortion. For me, hard is a little bit too abrasive, even for a sound like this, so I like to use soft and a fairly dark tone. It's getting quite loud. And obviously, it's up to you to make these settings fit your tune, and so on. So I'll play you a quick tune that I made with this sound. As you can see, I've tripled up that bass sound. These are all the exact same patch with one difference. They have different LFO rates, which means when I divide the notes up, I write my line, divide the notes up and muting them on certain tracks and allowing them through on others, and that gives me the change in pace of the wobble, which adds interest. And obviously you can vary that throughout your track just to keep the listener's ear interested. So here's what I've come up with. I should mention that I forgot to add that it's probably a good idea to use unison, which fattens up the sound, doubles up the oscillators and so on, but that's also your choice. I hope this was useful for some of you, and go and make some nasty Rusko-esque tracks. Thanks guys.